Hello. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. We're gonna do what? Okay. All right. I was hearing you good when you started addressing the crowd and everything. Then it froze up again. Oh, yes, I can hear you. And you said you can still see me. Right. All right. Well, to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm from originally from Norfolk, Virginia. That's where I'm born and raised. All my family's from there. Uh, uh, I would say low income, but we never needed for anything. Had both parents in the household, both parents worked. We had they always made ends meet, Um, and really just humble beginning. And I have a strong sports background, though. I played football for I would say I think about 20 years or so. I played college football, won a national championship with James Madison University. Um, and I think it was my close knit family really that kept me grounded. My mom keeping us in church, and then the lessons learned from my dad, about always being humble and putting others before yourself, and becoming an adult and seeing that not everybody has that same upbringing. Really kind of sparked the creativity, I guess you say, to want to write books and really just I have a my books are very realistic. Even the comedies, they're very realistic in that aspect because I like to get to know people, and as I get to know people, it's like I can put more uh, levels, more characteristics into my characters, and then in a way, in the book I think you're referencing is Mr. Wilder. I think that's the most controversial book. That's the one you were talking about, right? Right. Yeah, that one. So that one. You want me to go into detail about the book, or you how do you want me to do it? Well, okay. So, like I said, I played sports for a long time, and then I was done with college. um, we had this family gathering in 2010, which is the basis of my first comedy. And I had so much fun at that family gathering that I decided to write like a chapter or so. And then it sat for like 5 years. And this is the part of my life where I say it was definitely the most difficult, because after playing football, after everybody's telling you, you know, you're a great football player, whatever, and I thought I was gonna go to NFL and all this stuff, it was not until about 5 years later when I decided to finish the book. And in between those 5 years, it was really just me dealing with having to deal with my issues of getting over the fact that, you know, no longer athlete. I mean, I tried every other sport. I tried boxing. I tried tennis. I tried going track and field again, throwing the discus, running 100-meter dash. I tried all these different things, trying to find that same passion that I had for football, and couldn't find it, you know. And then when I was about 27 or 28, my wife was really getting on me about finishing things at the house, you know, a bunch of unfinished projects at the house. And then we finished the conversation, and she said, "What about that book you wrote back in 2010, the one you wrote like a chapter on or whatever?" And I said, you know, just kind of off a dare, like, "Yeah, I finished that too," you know, just to keep her quiet. and but um, but then I ended up finishing the book, and I liked it so much I started writing the second book. And even then, even after the second book, I really didn't consider myself to be a writer. Like, I didn't consider myself to be like somebody, you know, this is something I really enjoy doing, I'm gonna pursue this. It wasn't until I wrote Mr. Wilder, which was my third published novel, that I said, okay, I think I can get serious about this thing. I think this is something I really want to do full time, and I want to really pursue it in that manner. And as opposed to just, you know, out here just having fun with it. Like I got, yeah. Right. Um, Mr. Wilder, well, first of all, the short answer to the question is I didn't want to shift. I didn't want to I didn't want to get away from the comedies. Mr. Wilder really hit me. No, and this is, I mean, I don't know, I've never had this happen before or since, where I've always been a creative guy, but I've never had a story just hit me in the middle of the night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was in the middle of writing my second comedy, and I'm laying in the bed, tossing and turning, because this story just kept getting on my mind. And one thing that writers always say is that, you know, a ton of writers always have a bunch of different great ideas in their head. They always say, you know, just jot them down and, you know, be done with it, because more than likely it's not a story that's worth your time, because you'll forget about it. That's always my rule of thumb. If it's a story that I forget about, then it's not a good story. It's always the ones that stick to me that I'm like, okay, I'll write that one. And so Mr. Wilder came to me at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm tossing and turning. Once again, my wife is in bed, and she's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I gotta go write this thing down, because I can't stop thinking about it." And so I jump out of bed, and I said, "I'm just gonna write down a few of the ideas." I ended up outlining the whole novel, 14 pages outlined in 30 minutes that night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and I'd never forget, the next morning we were talking about it, and I told her, I said, "I think I might have just outlined my first bestseller." I really thought that book would be my first bestseller. Um, it's just it's so timely, and I guess it spurred from, I don't know, all the things that I saw going on in the news with the Black Lives Matter and the racial tension going on in the country. It spewed from all of that, you know. And I have a unique standpoint in the aspect that I'm the only black man in my office. I work around my entire office is there's several other black females, but I'm the only black man. And there's everyone else is Caucasian or other races, as you most primarily Caucasian. And but I grew up in an environment, obviously a black household in an all black environment down in Norfolk, where my high school I didn't have it wasn't predominantly white, is what I'm saying. It was it was a complete 180 for me when I went to James Madison University and became a minority. Growing up, your teachers always tell you as African American you're a minority, but you don't. I never saw it until I left to go to college. You understand what I'm saying? Um, and so that's where Mr. Wilder spewed from, and pretty much the moral of the story is that what I've learned from speaking to, like I said, white people and black people, is that really we both want the same things out of life. We might communicate it differently, but essentially we want the same things out of life. And it also points another moral of the story is that we're better together than we are apart. And so many people want to try to make it seem like it's this civil war about the spew. But it shouldn't be that way. It should be. If I think it's a serious lack of communication where and people are too lazy to really get past that barrier of, oh, they different or they crazy, or and as opposed to sitting down, hearing each other out, and coming to realize, hey, you know what, we're more alike than we are different. Right. Well, the books, here's what the book does, and how I portrayed it, and the reason why I did it that way, is so that it painted a clear picture for both races involved, white and black. I took a middle-aged white man from suburban America. He's actually from Danville, Virginia, which, if you remember, Martin Luther King said that was the racist place he'd ever been. Martin Luther King Jr. himself said that. So I created this character where he's a middle-aged white man from racist America, from with a racist upbringing, and he is a part-time creative writing teacher for these three teenage black boys at a predominantly black high school in Norfolk, Virginia, my hometown, Booker T. Washington High School. And yeah, Booker T, yeah. So they the three boys are already in an uproar. They're already angry because one of their friends, who happened to be a straight A black student, ended up getting shot and killed by a white teacher at the school. And so yeah, so that's how the book starts off. After the book starts off after the murder, and you know, all the parents in the black communities in an uproar, and the white principal is pretty much voluntold by the her mayor and you know, her head council or whatnot, to start extracurricular activity to calm down matters. You know, get the black community back in order, show them that we're concerned from a leadership standpoint. And so she decided to start extracurricular creative writing program, and she hires this teacher. His name is Mr. Wilder. That's the title, Mr. Wilder, and they bring him in. And these boys, these three angry black boys who come from low, each one of them have their own issue, in their own personality. And of course, he comes with his own issues, and he also has a secret. He also has a secret, so a dark past of some secrets that he reveals as the story goes along as well. But what ends up happening is people on the outside. You can imagine when they first get in the room, it's a bunch of clashing of personalities, you know, and like you said, likes and dislikes, and nobody really taking the time to communicate. But what ends up happening over time is that relationship ends up building. And I think this book is a great example, is just an example, is what I want it to be, of how things can become more, um how we can come together. It doesn't necessarily has to be the way that everybody does it, but it's an example of how it could be done, you know. Yeah. The furloughs and all that stuff. Right. 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 Well, I agree with you. Well, first, let me go back real quick to the beginning of your comment about my political background. I'm not a, I'm like you. I don't consider myself to be a political person at all. But I will say I did vote for Hillary Clinton. I did not vote for President Trump. I would definitely say that. But but like you said, and I do believe in being independent too. I filed claim independent because I like to pick the person who I think is the best candidate. I don't necessarily want to just pick a person because they're part of a party. Um, but moving forward, like you said, we are a diverse group of people, being black people. When you look at entertainment, period, is mostly dominated by black people. I feel that naturally we're very diverse, and I feel like we're very creative. I mean, if you just look at music, look at movies, we just, even though we don't get the credit we deserve at the Oscars most of the time, you know, but right, but I feel like as black people, we're so talented, and obviously that spews from our way of thinking. Um, but I addressed that issue in Mr. Wilder, um, with one of the boys who really takes a liking to creative writing. And Mr. Wilder breaks down to him, using his story for as a novel, and how to go about it. And a lot of times that's what I believe is missing with us, is like you said, the everyday heroes is what you were alluding to when you were saying, it's not the people who are always out in the forefront. A lot of times it's going to be that person who's just like an everyday hero, that person who you see every day, who just gives you a little bit of information, enough to keep you going, enough to keep you lifted up. And sometimes, like you said, just that little nugget of information that in my book necessarily that he needed to say, oh, okay, this is get me over the hump of how to become a great writer. This is get me over the hump of how to, what publishers are looking for in a novel or whatnot. Um, and those everyday heroes is where it's going to come from. Oftentimes you will not find it, like you said, from your big political leaders or whatever. The huge follower, the people out here who at the forefront of things, because they don't have the time to, most of the time, to sit down and speak with everyday people who are out there trying to pursue their dreams or pursue the next level. And so Mr. Wilder he really served. That's what he served as for the boys. And there was another character in there, an officer, an older black man in the school, who served as security at the school, who also was an everyday hero for these kids. Who he joked around with the kids and whatnot. He brought a little bit of humor to the novel, but he still was that guy who said, "Hey, I believe in you, kids. Keep it up." And it never was he didn't do it for a pat on the back. He didn't do it for a bunch of likes on Instagram and stuff like you see a lot of people doing now. It's just, it was genuine concern and just, hey, you can do it. Yeah. One of my favorite writers, I would probably say, is John Grisham. I like John Grisham. I like John Irvin too, but I think probably John Grisham the best, probably. Yeah. James Baldwin. Oh yeah, he's good. He's a classic. Yeah, his one of his movies, that movie, the one, Bill Street. Yep. Right. 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 It's yes, it's a New Year's comedy. It's the one with the gangster baby on the cover. But it's I just have fun with the comedies, man. I really do. And believe it or not, those actually are the ones that sell annually because it's a trilogy, a three-part trilogy, the Thanksgiving comedy, Christmas, and the New Year's comedy. And I kind of light up a little bit when I talk about that, even though I still say, huh? Do I have what? Oh no, I don't have a copy of it next to me. No, I don't. I should have one. Nope, it's downstairs. Right. All of them. Right. All of them are available on Amazon. You can get every last one of them on Amazon. The comedies you can get those in audio and Kindle as well. The audio version for the last one that just came out in November, that'll be coming out this summer. And then Mr. Wilder is also on Kindle and paperback. Is not there's no audiobook for Mr. Wilder though. But yeah, but all of them are so right. To tell the truth, everybody in my family is a comedian. If you hang around them long enough, they they that's I think where my comedy comes from. I come like I said from a very close knit family, so family gatherings we always cracking on each other. I mean, always that doesn't it never stops. And so I had to learn very early on not only how to take a joke but how to give one, because if you didn't give them, you'd be just the pun of all jokes. So 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 I mean, it's always a good time whenever we get together, though. But the comedies came in each one of my books. I always wanted to be when somebody reads one of my books, they can take something away from it. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, you're gonna laugh without a doubt. However, I also want you to take away something. I want you to say, "Wow, I picked up this book and I learned a little something." So with the comedies, like I said, it's a trilogy. You have Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Each one of them have a moral to the story of unconditional love. The Thankful for My Family is unconditional love for your family. Thankful for I'm Married with My Family is unconditional love for your spouse. That's the Christmas comedy. And then the new one just released, the New Year's comedy, that's unconditional love for your children. And so that's the trilogy and how it works. And and the morals of the story behind the jokes, and I enjoy writing them because it brings what I found is I actually have a picture Then I posted it on my, I think I posted it on my Instagram account, where a lady who read my book, she went and got a copy for every member of her family. They read it together, and they posted a picture at the family reunion with the whole family, and they were holding up the book. And yeah, I know, and I was like, and so bringing families together, that's what I hope to do with my comedy. I know people like that's kind of lofty to think that off a comedy book, but I don't. If you don't, I always say you have to believe it before anybody else does. And I believe it could happen. I saw it happen with one family, so hopefully it keeps happening. I like seeing families together. Yeah, because yeah, and I was gonna say too. That's another thing we were talking about earlier. We were talking about how politically driven Mr. Wilder was. And we talked about that, and that's a huge point in our community. But I feel like an even bigger. That's another. I feel like if that's not the biggest problem in our community, probably the second biggest problem in our community is the lack of families being together. Yeah, and I'm not gonna point and say the father, I'm not gonna point and say the mother, I'm just gonna say the families, because we live in a day and time now where it used to be just, oh, daddy's gone, but now it's starting to become, it could be mama too, so it's just um the family unit itself has really took a big fall uh in recent years, and and I feel like the people who really pay for it is the kids. I benefited, like I said earlier, I benefited from having two parents in the household, and but I have friends who didn't, and you can a lot of times you can see the difference in in that in that coming from that environment. Yeah. Right. Mhm. Right. Yes. Yeah, and it's not a yeah, and it's not an easy task by any means. But right. Right, yeah, but and that's I had a guy tell me like this one time when he read one of my books. He told me he thinks that what makes my book so funny is that there's some realism in it, and I feel like really that's the basis of comedy. That's really what comedy is you taking a little bit of some truth and putting a humorous twist on it, or you know what I mean, or exaggerating the truth a little bit to make it humorous. But it's that's what nobody wants to hear, like something they can't relate to. It's not gonna make them laugh, and but yeah, man, it's marriage is real, families are real. I had a person tell me like this one time. If anybody listening is who's married or struggling with their marriage right now, I tell you, a lady told me one time, she said the three biggest causes of divorce are sex, finances, and communication. And then she said kids add a strain to all three of them. And I was like, wow, I never had anybody put it so plainly to me, but it's the truth. My wife and I, when we had our son, it was like wow, we already had a daughter. My wife had a daughter before we met, and then but I kind of came into it knowing of a ready-made family. But then when we added our son to the picture, when you add a baby to the picture, and you got two grown-ups not getting sleep, and, it's like it's like, whoa, wait a minute, this thing is real now. But yeah, but now he's 5 years old. We make it, and that's the thing. You got to tough it out through those stages. But like you say, going back to the community and the family, I feel like that's like you said, you were fortunate to have uncles, and especially with our young black men who just possess so much leadership. It's important for them to have a male figure in their life. You were fortunate to have your uncles. Like I said, I was fortunate to have my dad, and I know other men who had men who step up. But when you don't have a man who doesn't step up, it's hard, and a lot of times I know I'm 32 years old. I'm a 32-year-old man now, and I was just in the mall the other day. This is a true story. I'm in the mall the other day, and I see a boy in there wearing some skinny jeans with his pants sagging, holding up the front of his pants, and just yelling at some girl at some store or whatever. And the father in me, the black man in me, I just want to go talk to him. I just want to go talk to him and be like, hey man, listen, let me just pull to the side and say, hey man, listen, let me talk to you a little bit. Hey man, the way you present yourself ain't really appeasing. This is how you should do it, and blah 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 blah. But then I guess I should say the other side of me is like, I don't know that kid. That ain't none of my business. And I feel like that's the side that we tend to listen to more. I know I do. I'm saying that, not even myself. I'm the same way. I tend to listen to that side more, and then what ends up happening is that person never really hears a male perspective, and so they never get that, and so then that becomes a norm. And what happens is people like my 4-year-old, 5-year-old son, they see young men like him, and they grow up and want to mimic that. You understand what I'm saying? And that's where you gotta stay on your. I stay on my son. He ain't gonna do that, but 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 but. Right, 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 right. Absolutely. Right. Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man. I really do. That means a lot to me. It really does. And like I say, man, and if like and anybody who it doesn't have to be a former athlete, former anything, where you had to you know, continue to grow. There's another chapter in your life. You just got to keep searching, keep digging. I never forget when Kobe Bryant when he retired, Michael Jordan put in his speech to Kobe Bryant, he said, "Congratulations. I hope you can find something to be competitive in as much as you were in basketball." And I tell people all the time that quote from Michael Jackson to Kobe Bryant, that quote right there really stuck with me because it goes to show you that I tell people all the time, just because you're not an athlete anymore doesn't mean you can stop being competitive. It does. It's not a. You can't turn that off. You'll lose your athleticism or whatnot, but that mentality of wanting to compete, wanting to win, wanting to be good at something, wanting to be passionate about something, wanting to put your work ethic into something. It's very necessary, man. And I coming home every day, watching TV, paying the bills, going to work, taking care of your family. I mean, those are all great things, but I will tell you, it gets boring, especially. I always say if you have that feeling inside that there's more that you could be doing, then there is. It's the people. If you don't have that feeling inside that, hey, if you have that feeling inside, hey, I'm good, then I'm not talking to you, but to somebody who you got that feeling on the inside is like I could be doing more. There's more to life than this. Then usually there is, and you need to try to find it. So okay, so I got a couple things going on. First of all, if you're on social media, Instagram, I'm up there. The writer SJ. That's all one thing. The writer TheWriterSJ on Instagram. Follow me. I post all my updates up there of what I have going on. And then secondly, the first book we talked about, the Thanksgiving comedy, that one will be turned into a movie. So that's the big news. Yep. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. So I'm doing a open casting call January 26th. If you're in the Tidewater area of Virginia, Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Suffolk, Portsmouth. You're down there. Come on out. Military Circle Mall, January 26th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll be doing open casting call. Got the casting director. I'll be partnered up with OVR 10 Productions to produce this film. Thankful for my family. It's going to be a Thanksgiving comedy set to be released in November of this year. Um, oh, great. What'd you say? Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 I'm really excited about this. I wrote this screenplay. This was the last thing that I wrote right before Mr. Wilder. So I wrote the Thanksgiving comedy, then I wrote the Christmas comedy. And it's funny how it came about because I've always just wanted to write novels. I never really wanted to write movie scripts or anything. And I went to a class that they have up in at the Writer Center up there in Bethesda. It's not Bethesda, Maryland. It's another part of Maryland. I can't remember. I forget the name of it. But I went to the Writer Center up there, and they had a class they were offering called how to transform your script for the big screen. And so I saw the title of the class. I thought that the class would tell me the type of things that I need to incorporate in my book so that Hollywood could turn it into a movie. Little did I know, they flew a movie director in from Hollywood to come teach the class, and all he talked about was how to write a screenplay, how to write a movie script, what to put in a movie script. I mean, he really could care less about the novel. So, and so and so we had a little lunch break, and I got a chance to talk to the guy one on one, and I told him my story and the novel that I was working on at the time, and he said, you need to do yourself a favor and write a movie script for that. And I said, really? Like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, do yourself a favor, write a movie script. He said, that sounds like it'd be a great movie. And I was like, okay, all right, sure, So after, like I said, right before Mr. Wilder, after I finished the Christmas comedy, I went and bought a book. And I'm like you, I'm an avid reader. Everything pretty much that I've learned from writing, for the most part, I learned from reading books on it. I go to the library and I rented out a book on how to write a screenplay, and I read the book, and I started writing the screenplay. And when I wrote it, I thought, okay, this is good. Let me send it to the guy. I sent it to him. Didn't hear anything back. Then I sent it out to a bunch of different other Hollywood producers, sent it out to some screenplay companies. I will tell you that getting a screenplay through Hollywood, if you don't have an agent, is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And so I just let it sit. I wrote Mr. Wilder, and then I wrote this last novel here. And then I went to a writers conference up in Minnesota earlier this year, and I mentioned it. They had a screenplay type guy there, and I mentioned it to him, and he said, if you could, he said, could you afford to produce this movie yourself? And I said, well, I believe I can. I said, yeah, and then he said, well, if you can, you should. And so what I decided to do was I found out about Blacklist, and I got on Blacklist. And Blacklist is where, just in case anybody who listens doesn't know, that's where screenwriters post their screenplays to be read by professional producers and get it out to major production companies. And so I posted it up there, and I got a pretty good rating, got a 7 out of 10 on it. And then I made an Instagram post looking for producers or whatnot who want to produce it. And after the post, I got in contact with OVR Tim Productions, got in contact with them, and they said, hey, man, we really like your story. We want to do this. And I said, all right. And so we sat down, worked out the details, and it'll be happening November 2019. So yeah, it's I'm glad I didn't. Number one, I'm glad I didn't give up on it, and number two, I'm really thankful for the opportunity. I believe it's going to be a hilarious movie. I've done a few stand-up gigs now where I've done like some stand-up comedy, but this movie, the material in this movie is going to be hilarious, and I'm excited. I got a few comedians who are going to be in there, a few local comedians to the 757 area. Um, uh, Chris, if I can just give a little quick shout out to some of them, it's going to be Angus Black. Yeah, it's going to be Angus Black. These are famous comedians down in that area, well-known comedians in that area, I should say. Angus Black, then Chris Patterson, Chris Banknote Patterson, and then I'm working on another one, so I can't say the name yet because they haven't said yes yet. So, so we'll see. But those are two of the comedians that are going to definitely be in the movie. So we're excited. We're excited, and the film crew's a bunch of great guys. I can't wait. I'm excited. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and we will stay connected for sure. I have your number. We definitely stay connected, and I definitely keep you up to date on everything that's happening. Hello. Okay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You have a good day too. I really appreciate it, man. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Same to you.